The Biggest Lie in the History of Christianity by Matthew Kelly. 8. One Beautiful Truth. Truth is beautiful, despite the title. This book is not about lies. It is about truth in particular, the one central truth that encapsulates the joy of Christian living. The truth that holy moments are possible reminds us that in the face of the overwhelming problems in our world, we can wake each day and joyfully share God's truth, goodness, and beauty with everyone who crosses our path. The modern world is a complex world, and the problems our world faces are complex problems. So the temptation is to turn to complexity for answers to these complex problems. But the answer is not more complexity, and the solutions to our complex problems are much simpler than we seem willing to realize. We have become hypnotized by complexity, but the essence of Christianity is simple. In that simplicity, Christianity is good and beautiful, positive and hopeful. Goodness, beauty, and hope. These are things that people need. They are things that I need. And if you and I don't allow these things to flow through us into the world, then who will? When will they? And can the world and all the people trapped in misery wait? I think not. I think now is the time. Now is our time. Can one truth change the world? I believe it can. Is it possible for just one beautiful truth to change your life? I know with absolute certainty that it is possible. How can I be so very sure? I have seen it happen before, and I've experienced it. The single truth that holy moments are possible, and that you and I, with all of our faults and flaws, defects and weakness, brokenness and constant need, can collaborate with God and create a single holy moment is life-changing. It was this single beautiful truth that completely changed my life when I was about 15 years old. Since then, I have been fumbling around trying to cooperate and collaborate with God to create holy moments. Some days have been successful. Other days have been complete failures, warped by selfishness and worldly desire. There have been some marvelous moments over the years when I have known without a doubt that the hand of God was on my shoulder, guiding and encouraging me. There have also been some desperately sad moments when I felt more alone than I have ever thought possible, when I curled into a fetal position and cried out to God, but got no answer. But by some grace, I got back up literally and figuratively and pressed on. Sometimes it took hours, sometimes it took days, and I am ashamed that sometimes it took weeks or months. But sooner or later, I am always led back to this singular truth that holy moments are possible. In a world that can seem so dark at times, God gives you and me a candle and a match and says, "You are the light of the world." You and me? I know, it seems impossible, but it is both the story of Christianity and the legacy of each Christian, and yet all these words can feel like little more than a theory. So, let's talk about the beautiful truth that holy moments are possible and practical in practical terms. Let's make it real and bring it to life, and with everyday examples that we can relate to. John Miller discovered that his neighbor 3 houses down had broken his leg. He had never met his neighbor, but on Saturday, when he was mowing his lawn, he noticed the lawn 3 houses down was getting a little long. So when he finished mowing his own lawn, that Saturday afternoon, he went down and mowed his neighbor's lawn. That was a holy moment. John mowed his neighbor's lawn every Saturday for 8 weeks. Lillian Lopez thought she was going to lose her mind over her teenage daughter's attitude and behavior. She had prayed for months asking God to do something, but it turned out God wanted Lillian to do something. The following Sunday morning, she woke her daughter at 7 a.m. saying, "Get yourself ready. We are leaving in 20 minutes." As you can imagine, that wasn't too well received. "Where are we going?" her daughter yelled. "I'll tell you on the way." Her mother replied. Earlier in the week, Lillian had bought 2 leather-bound journals, and they weren't expensive. But money was tight, and so they didn't come without sacrifice. Lillian took her daughter to their favorite breakfast spot. After they had ordered, she pushed one of the journals across the table. "What's this?" her daughter asked. "It's the book of your life," Lillian answered. "A place to write your hopes and dreams, a place to plan, and somewhere to doodle when doodling is what best helps you think about your future." Her daughter's eyes began to fill with tears. It was a holy moment. "So what are your dreams?" Lillian asked her daughter. They talked for almost an hour about her daughter's hopes and dreams for her life, and she started writing them in her journal. Then she noticed there was a second journal on her mother's side of the table, in the corner. "What's the other journal?" she asked her mom. That was another holy moment. "That's my book of life," Lillian replied. "I figured it's time for me to start dreaming again." Emmanuel wasn't young, but he wasn't old. At 50 and in good health, he hoped he had a lot of life still ahead of him. He had some extra vacation time, so he decided to have a staycation, a week off at home, just resting, getting organized, having breakfast with his wife instead of rushing out the door to work, driving his kids to school and picking them up each day. It turned out to be a whole week of holy moments. Each day when he got home from dropping his kids at school, he would take a walk. 2 blocks from where he lived was a retirement home. He drove by it on the way to work every day, but never really gave it much thought. But a couple of Sundays passed, and he had read an article about how the average resident in a retirement home gets fewer than 1 visitor a month. So, on Tuesday, he was walking past. He decided to stop in. The truth is, he had to force himself to do it. But he pushed through his discomfort, walked in, and approached the front desk. It was an awkward moment, he told me, standing there at the reception desk. "I live down the road and I have a bit of extra time today. So I was wondering if you have any residents who don't get many visitors. I was thinking I could visit with a couple, and that might brighten their date a little." Emmanuel explained to the receptionist. "This is very thoughtful," she said. "I know just the person." Then she pointed down a hallway that must have had 70 or 80 doors. I said, "Walk down that hallway, pick any door, knock on the door, and you'll be in the right room." Emmanuel smiled uncomfortably and walked down the hallway. Because his birthday was the 21st of January, he picked room number 21, knocked on the door, and after hearing a rather grumpy come in, he went in. Sitting in the corner was a gentleman by the name of William Butler. Emmanuel introduced himself and they began to talk. Bill was a fascinating guy. They talked about life and family, business and God. It was a holy moment. 10 years ago, today, Emmanuel and Bill are best friends. Joanne Benzer worked at a greeting card company. Less than 3 miles from the company was a prison with 400 male occupants, the worst of the worst offenders. Joanne had worked at the greeting card company for 13 years, and almost every morning as she drove past the prison on the way to work, she wondered about the prisoners and what had gone wrong. As a mother, she couldn't help but think how hard it must be for their mothers. As May came around that year, Joanne had an idea. She went to her boss and said, "What if our community service project this quarter, we take some Mother's Day cards and stamps over to the prison for the prisoners to send to their moms?" Joanne's boss said he would check with the prison and get back with her. The following week, he told Joanne the prison warden was very appreciative and supportive. The next week, Joanne and 9 of her colleagues went over to the prison with 200 Mother's Day cards, thinking that not all the prisoners would necessarily want to participate. It quickly became apparent that her assumption was completely wrong. Before Joanne had helped a dozen prisoners pick a card for their mothers, she had been asked 7 times, "Would it be okay if I took 2?" Joanne finally worked up the nerve to ask one of the prisoners, "What is your name, sir?" "Jimmy Johnson, ma'am," he replied. "Why do you want 2, Jimmy?" Joanne asked. "Well, my mom did the best she could, but she had her own problems. And so, I was mostly raised by my grandmother. So, I was thinking, if it was okay with you, good people, I would send one to my grandmother too." Joanne had to use all her strength to not burst into tears. There were 400 inmates in the prison that day, and every single one wrote a Mother's Day card. That's 400 holy moments, in fact. Joanne and her company ended up mailing 657 Mother's Day cards for inmates. That's 1,057 holy moments. Martin Coster picks up 78-year-old Michael Williams every Wednesday night and drives him to the Bible study. That's a holy moment. When Mary Wright goes through the drive-thru each morning to get her coffee, she pays for the person behind her. She does it every day. When I asked her why, she replied, "So many reasons, I guess." We need to look out for each other. Lots of people have been generous to me throughout my life in large ways and small. People need to know that there are generous, thoughtful people in the world, and ultimately, I believe that thoughtfulness and generosity are contagious and can change the world. That's one of Mary's daily holy moments, and she's right. Holy moments are contagious. Tony Harris has discovered something about himself over the years. He is a very impatient listener. He constantly finds himself wanting to jump in, interrupt, and make a point. For 4 years, 3 times a day, he has been trying to consciously stop himself from doing this. That's a lot of patience. Holy moments. Just by focusing on changing this one horrible habit I developed over my life, I find I am more patient with my wife, my children, my colleagues at work, my pastor, and the strangers who cross my path and, to be honest, really irritate me. Holy moments cannot be contained. They reach out into every relationship and aspect of our lives. Anastasia Petrov is a Russian immigrant and nurse. "I love America," she says to me with her 62-year-old smile. A few years ago, one of the other nurses works at the hospital got cancer and had to take some time off work. Anastasia didn't know her very well, but she knew that the other nurse had 3 kids and that she needed to work. The hospital's policy allowed for the sick nurse to have 6 weeks off with pay. But after that, her time away from work was without pay. At lunch one day, Anastasia heard some of the other nurses talking about doing one of those things online funding projects to help out. "We can do better than that," Anastasia had said to her colleague. They all turned and stared at her. You see, Anastasia was a quiet woman. She was a listener. Plenty of lunch breaks would pass without her saying a single word. Perhaps it was just her personality, or perhaps it was the result of being raised in Soviet Russia. What do you mean? One of her colleagues finally asked her, "Everyone loves Jane. She is always doing kind things for people. We all have 3 12-hour shifts a week. All we need to do is find 3 nurses to volunteer an extra shift each week, and Jane can keep getting paid until she is well and can come back to work." The other nurses stared at her with astonishment and admiration. "I'll organize the schedule," Anastasia added. And so she did. Each week while Jane was out of work, Anastasia found 3 nurses to do an extra shift so that Jane could continue to be paid her full salary. I learned about this from Sophia, another nurse at the hospital. "How long was Jane off work?" I asked Sophia. 3 years. She replied with a smile. "Anastasia is a saint," she continued. "Talk about holy moments." I figure Anastasia triggered about 10 million holy moments at lunch that day. There are some amazing stories here, but I don't want to give you the impression that every holy moment has to be huge and heroic. Holy moments come in all shapes and sizes, but the great majority of them are small and anonymous. Begin each day with a short prayer of gratitude, thanking God for giving you another day of life. That's a holy moment. Go out of your way to do something for your spouse that you would rather not do as an intentional act of love. That's a holy moment. Offer the least enjoyable task of your day to God as a prayer for someone who is suffering. That's a holy moment. Control your temper, even if you are fully justified in losing it. That's a holy moment. Before making a decision, ask, what will help me become a better version of myself? That's a holy moment. Encourage someone, coach someone, praise someone, affirm someone. These are holy moments. Be patient with that person who drives you crazy. That's a holy moment. Do someone else's chores. That's a holy moment. Teach someone how to pray. That's a holy moment. Give someone a life-changing book. That's a holy moment. Ask God to lead and guide you. That's a holy moment. Tell someone your faith story. That's a holy moment. Stay calm in the midst of a crisis. That's a holy moment. Choose the best version of yourself even when you don't feel like it. That's a holy moment. Make a healthy eating choice. That's a holy moment. Recycle. That's a holy moment. Get honest with yourself about your self-destructive habits. That's a holy moment. Tell God you trust He has a great plan for you and your life. That's a holy moment. Give whoever is in front of you your full attention. That's a holy moment. Holy moments are possible. Holiness is possible. This is a beautiful truth, and truth animates us. This is also the very will of God. In 1 Thessalonians 4:3, we read, "This is the will of God, that you be holy." Don't let yourself be neutralized by the biggest lie in the history of Christianity. Reject that lie every day and embrace every holy moment that comes your way. But first, let's have a moment of raw, unfiltered honesty. Truth is beautiful, but it can also be inconvenient, uncomfortable, and even disturbing. So let me ask you a question. Before now, did you ever believe holiness was possible for you? If your answer is ever no, I am so excited for what is ahead of you. Holiness is possible for you. This single, profound, beautiful truth will change your life forever. So let's pray together right now. Lord, please, I beg you, never let me forget that holiness is possible, and give me grace and courage to go into the world and create with you as many holy moments as possible. Amen. Opportunities to create holy moments are everywhere. In fact, every moment is an opportunity for holiness. Learning to grasp these opportunities one moment at a time is central to the Christian life. Holiness is possible. This is the good news that Christians everywhere need to be convinced and reminded of. This is the good news that will raise us out of our neutralized, passive, inactive state and open our hearts, minds, and souls to an amazing new reality. This beautiful truth. This sings beautiful truth transforms us into people of possibility. Part of this new reality is the joy that comes from gospel living. The lie that holiness is not possible keeps us from the joy that God wants us to experience. You don't need to work hard at creating holy moments for months or years before you start to experience this joy. It is immediate. Each holy moment brings with it an injection of joy. Each holy moment is its own reward. Holiness is possible for you. You can collaborate with God to create holy moments. Try it today. In the process, you will become a better version of yourself. Help others become a better version of themselves and to make the world a better place. Don't waste another moment. Remind yourself over and over again that it is possible. Modern culture says holiness is not possible. It's a lie. If you cannot create one holy moment that proves holiness is possible for you, modern culture has robbed billions of people of happiness by discouraging them in their Christianity and convincing them of this single lie that holiness is not possible. But today is a day of liberation. Today, I hope you have been liberated from that lie, and as a result, the whole world looks differently. Holiness is possible for you. This beautiful truth is the opposite of the diabolical, neutralizing lie that has paralyzed so many Christians and their communities. It should be no surprise that one of the greatest truths in the history of Christianity is the exact opposite of the biggest lie in the history of Christianity. Holiness is possible, one moment at a time. This single beautiful truth can change your life forever, beginning today, beginning right now. But it goes so far beyond you and your church community. Let's take a look at how this one idea changed the world 2,000 years ago, and it can change the world again in our times.